saying about legislatures, both federal and state. This is attributed to Otto von Bismarck, who was the leader of Germany in the turn of the last century. There are two things you don't want to see being made: sausage and legislation. A couple of things we want to be thinking of. The state legislatures are bicameral, meaning they have two houses, an upper house and a lower house. Only one, and that is the state of Nebraska, has a unicameral legislature, which means they only have one house. So the duties of the legislators: policy making, representation, and executive oversight. We'll talk about each one of those in a little more detail. Policy making means the creation of bills and statutes. This is what most of us think we sent the representatives to the legislature to do: make the bills, or make the rules that we live by, create law. They also create constitutional amendments and resolutions. And we're going to talk a little bit about resolutions because a lot of people have a misunderstanding of exactly what a resolution is. So I want to talk a little bit about a resolution. A resolution is a formal statement of a decision or expression of an opinion put before or adopted by an assembly, such as the U.S. Congress or the Legislature of California. This is not the same as a law. A resolution does not usually have the force of law. So I'm going to be giving you some examples of a resolution. One that I found in the archives of the state legislature is SR 7. This resolution would put the Senate on record as supporting the repeal of Proposition 8 and declaring that the initiative was an improper revision to the California Constitution. A joint resolution is when both chambers of the legislature come together and pass this opinion or this what they want to pass as a resolution to say, this is what we believe and this is what we're thinking. Notice the date on this resolution. This is September 13th, 2001, 2 days after 9/11. And you can see that the California Legislature came together and put out a resolution about flight training schools. And they are sending this resolution as a message to the Congress to deal with the FAA and make tighter regulations dealing with flight training schools. If you are aware or you remember 9/11, the men who were flying those airplanes that created all this tragedy had been trained in flight schools in the United States. Now, besides creating policy, another job of the legislature is representation, to represent you and me. They represent us. It's called constituent representation. We are the constituents. And this is geographically and socially. And so they represent us because we send them from our geographic location. And they also do what is called casework. Now, when they are representing us, they may work as either a delegate or a trustee or a politico. The delegate functions as a mere conduit for what I want. When I send that representative, I say, I want you to be a delegate. I want you to vote the way I want you to vote. A representative who sees himself or herself as a trustee doesn't always vote the way we want, doesn't always see himself or herself as a delegate, and votes according to his or her conscience, according to his best judgment. A representative who sees himself as a trustee is going to say, I know that this is what the people say they want, but in my best judgment, this is not a good idea. And then the politicos function sometimes as a delegate, sometimes as a trustee, and sometimes just for their own political job. And then casework. Casework is when a member of the legislature does something that we need to have done for us personally. Say and then oversight. The state legislature is the body that is supposed to provide oversight of all of the agencies that work for the California government. In addition to that, in other words, we have these various agencies. Who's making sure they're doing the right thing? That's supposed to be the legislature. In addition, some of the governor's appointments need to be confirmed by the Senate. There is an impeachment process, just like there is at the federal level, to remove public officials who we think are not doing their job. And then, of course, the power of the purse, which is the power of the legislature to give or to withhold money, depending on their opinion of whether the institution in question is doing its job. Now, we're going to talk specifically about the California Legislature's makeup. We'll talk first about the Assembly. This is considered the lower house. There are 80 members, and you must be at least 18 years old to be a member. You must have been a resident of the state for 3 years and a resident of the district that you represent for 1 year. The Assembly serves 2-year terms and a maximum of 3-year terms. So the longest you can be in the Assembly is 6 years. The Assembly is organized with a speaker. The speaker is the most powerful member of our state legislature, mostly because of the duties that fall to this person, appointing committee chairpersons and most of the committee members, and also calling out bills and referring them to committee. So this is a powerful position. It's a gateway position. Now, the Senate has 40 members, exactly half of what the Assembly has. Also have to be 18 years old, resident of the state for 3 years, and resident of your district for 1 year. 4-year terms with a maximum of 2 terms, which means the longest you can serve in the Senate would be 8 years. Therefore, there's a total of 14 years that you can be in the California State Legislature. Now, because of term limits, this has made a big difference. In the past, people would go there and they'd stay there practically their whole lives. I mean, they would be 20 years, 25 years. And we'll talk about some of the impact of term limits later in the course. But for now, just know that 14 years is the maximum you can be in the state legislature. There is an initiative that will be on the ballot in February that will reduce that. The organization of the Senate, the head of the Senate is the Lieutenant Governor. In reality, he is frequently not there, and the job of running the Senate day to day falls to the Senate President Pro Tem. And provides the day-to-day oversight, and also chairs the Senate Rules Committee. There are lots of standing committees within the California Legislature, and I am going to be giving you an assignment to look at some of those committees. And the various committees are the ones that actually process the legislation as it goes from being a bill into becoming a law. Some of these, besides the standing committees, we have fiscal committees, conference committees, and select committees. I'm going to talk about a little bit about a conference committee. Conference committees serve one special purpose, and that is, as a bill is being voted on and as it is created, it has to go through both the Assembly and through the Senate. And if a bill passes in the Assembly and it passes in the Senate, that's all well and good, but it's probably not exactly the same. The wording will be a little bit different of what came out of the Assembly and what came out of the Senate. And the conference committee is the committee made up of members of both houses that sits there and irons out those differences, so we end up with one bill that is in its final state. Here are some of the standing committees in the Senate: Agriculture, Education, Energy, Environmental Quality, Health, Public Employment, and Retirement. But in 1911, the Progressives came to power, and, they came to power in 1900. They pushed for new legislation, and in 1911 was the first time they got real power in California, and elected Hiram Johnson as the governor. And the Progressive Party was about getting rid of corruption, about modernizing the government, making it more efficient, and better able to handle the job of governing. And so we have the new amendments to the Constitution that took away some of the legislature power. These were amendments. The 17th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution in 1913 gave us the direct election of senators. In 1926, there were some changes in how representation was to be counted. And California instituted what was called a federal plan. And what this federal plan said, there was no county with more than one senator, but they tried to put it if one county, one senator. Well, the problem is this: we have 58 counties in California, and we have 80 senators. Well, so that doesn't work out evenly. And if you look at a map and you start to look at the size of these counties, sometimes just get a map of California and look at the county lines, and you will see that the counties in the north are small. They're small geographically. And the counties in Southern California are very large. San Bernardino County is the largest county in the United States. Riverside County is also very large. So what this meant was that the northern counties had a lot more representation than the southern. And so the interest groups grew in number and in power because they were able to operate. The power, of course, was residing in the north, and so policy making was regional policy making.